I'd like to welcome everybody back to our afternoon session. Indian tacos and fried walleye. Nothing but the best. I'd like to thank again the Rosette Law Firm for sponsoring our lunch. Also thank the Convention Center Manager Jennifer Wilcox for always putting on a great spread, great accommodations for any event that's held here. At this time, I'd like to introduce a group of dynamic young men and women that are the future makers of Lac Du Flambeau. This group is responsible for a number of different projects, one being the broadband initiative here at Lac Du Flambeau. I can't say enough about this group of people. I look forward to seeing the dynamic things that they have in store for the tribe throughout the course of the next 20 to 30 years or so on. At this time, Joni Theobald and Ogema Communications speaking on developing a tribal apprenticeship program.
I'm going to try to see if I can just see this up here. I'll just hold it. Thanks for having me. Well, actually, we put ourselves on the agenda, so it's nice. Just to start with our tribal telecom and apprenticeship, this program began out of the education and workforce, and I'm going to kind of give some background on how that developed and kind of some history with the department and the tribe, and then we'll lead into how this current apprenticeship program is and some of the real hands-on, the real-life application that we have going on within the department and the training. So, again, I'm Joni Theobald, the Education Workforce Development Director, and with me, I have, I'll introduce you guys. So we have a larger team, but much like a lot of apprenticeship trainings, they become valuable members, and it's hard to keep the group because everybody in other divisions wants workers. So again, that's part of the success, and that is the objective of the program, is to full-time employment placement within the tribe. So with us we have Raelle Allen on the end. She is part of the Ogema team, but also has moved into our call center with the BDC. So she's been with the project for the full length. We have Michael Murphy, who's currently in Ogema, Daniel Tupro, David Fleming, and we do have a couple others. We have Judd Saucer, who will be back here shortly, and we have Philip Chapman, who is original member, but also moved in Tribal Roads Department. So, and please, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to stop, raise your hand, and we can go over anything you'd like, or if you need further explanation. So Kikundasman is our actual department name, and part of that is, our goal, our basically our overall mission is bring together partnerships, use the creative talent in our community, develop partnerships even within the local departments, the town departments, but also trying to leverage funds whenever possible. Many times, as you can see, we have a lot of great programs, kind of like what Brent was saying. Sometimes you're expected to start from the ground up with nothing, but again, hi John, so John's here. So, but anyway, those are kind of our mission, our strategic goals, also being very data driven. A lot of what we do, is looking at the survey, looking at our communities. What is the population? What is the education level? What are the priorities? And I'll talk a little more about that as I go on. Here's some of our services. I can't hear, sorry, I'm going to say probably 100 times. But being a teacher and having public speaking, I'm always aware of that. But I'm just going to acknowledge it and move on, and I'll probably keep doing it. But our services, one of the things that our council had decided, which I think strategically was great for us, and it was really good for our programming, is to bring the division of workforce underneath education or as a collaboration. So we house the workforce development. As you can see, we have, I'm not going to read all through, but we have the driver's education. Back in 2010, when I first came back home, working here for the tribe, it was basically it was higher education. It was just the grants program, the BIA funds. And so once workforce moved in, we were able to get creative with our Workforce Investment Act funds and develop different workforce initiatives that complement our education. So with that, we have a lot of different programs. We have a newer program, which I think is real unique. And a lot of this inspiration enough for us comes from Ho-Chunk Nation. I worked for, yes, applause, accolades to Ho-Chunk. I spent a lot of time working for Ogema Nation, and their department and divisions was quite extensive. So that's something I'd really like to see here. I wanted to see here, and as we leveraged and created the BDC, how could we, again, look at our goals of developing a workforce, developing capacity, our own tribal membership could be in these different management, which is another, I believe Ho-Chunk still has where directors are tribal members as part of their policy, which I think is an excellent goal for us to strive towards. So, again, one of our newest is the off-reservation housing. As a student, as I went off to school, came back some years later, I see it currently in our department and also my own experiences, the housing, you're not ready for that movement and supporting yourself housing-wise. So you have housing here, maybe it's, for us, or maybe as a student, I guess, it's like $15 a month or something, or if you pay or stay with relatives, and then you're moving off res, and if you're not within dorms, it gets quite expensive, even up to $900 a month. So that was kind of a shocker, and I know with our first-time college students, that was something I had asked the council to really support and be a part of it. With that, we also strategically set in that we'll support you in an off-reservation housing program as a loan, or you can come back and work for the tribe in a loan forgiveness. So again, trying to pull tribal membership once they become educated, get that experience to come back home and work. So. One of the things, again, we talked about being data-driven is really, and during the council presentation, really giving them what is the data, what does it look like, what does our tribal membership look like educationally, work-based, our young people. So with that, some of the statistics that support apprenticeship is 50%, not being in college. These are that's adult members from our per cap survey, or not being employed. That's a high unemployment rate. This data was taken in 2012. This year, less than 50% of our Head Start families are working or in college. So again, some of you may be aware, we're in a state of emergency. Our council declared a state of emergency. What does that mean? It means we want to take some action against drug and alcohol, the crime on the reservation, but at the same time, look at prevention strategies. So it was a way apprenticeship is to target young people who may not be working or in college, that we can provide an opportunity. Again, in our survey results from our per cap, we included a survey with a per cap letter so we could get a response rate. We had about 51% return rate on that demonstrated about 70 of our tribal adults had successfully completed a secondary education. So again, out of a membership of 4,000, we're in dire need for that, to advance that educational goal. So one of the objectives for apprenticeship, and I'm not going to read them off, but again, it's a training sequence that we build job readiness, and it establishes employment in tribal demand or even state demand areas. So with that, we kind of jumped into the apprenticeship model. We were supporting higher education opportunities. We had about We typically see about 40 tribal members, on reservation members, graduating from high school. We have a class of 40. Of the past maybe 4 to 5 years, we have about 10 who leave the reservation to post-secondary education. That leaves about 30. We're unsure of, we were at the time unsure, what are they doing? But it was a small enough number for us to take a look at, okay, are they working? Are they becoming parents? Are they just not working? They just go straight into employment. So we wanted to take, we've got 30 tribal members per year graduating school, but staying here. So what do we have? What are we doing to make improvements or just find a job placement? So with that, the tribe, the council, even at the BIA, the Midwest region, we established our priorities. Of course, we have natural resources as a Midwest priority. We have education as a Midwest in IT and environment. So with that, we focused on some of those priorities and developed 3 pilot apprenticeships within the education department. And that is the teacher ed. I believe Rick had mentioned earlier, we started the immersion program with our 1 and 2-year-olds. So we have those speakers with the kids that's going. We've got about 8 students in that pilot wrapped into our Head Start program. And that has been going on for almost a year now. So construction trades, we have Len, who's in my department over here with the Youth Build project. We were successful at attaining a Youth Build grant. It was a $1.2 million grant this past year. We were very excited and then went, whoa, okay, now we have to do this? That kind of fear when you win the grant, then you got to pull off all the logistics. Well, that was a great, so that kind of helped our construction and all the apprenticeships we looked at. I work closely with the BEC, the business board, to make sure whatever company or whatever we have up and coming or what the council establishes as priorities in the workforce, we have a training plan. And very specific is a place-based training plan, which means we need something here in Lac du Flambeau for those 30 a year that are leaving the reservation. As low cost as possible, and it can lead to an accredited degree program that provide experience. So again, construction trades is a complement to our union-based tribal construction company that led, and we have 2 others heading up that started. Now that reaches into our 16-year-olds as well, according to the federal criteria. We also have the technology. We have Ogema Communications, which came out of a project of the job placement training program within my department. It was an apprenticeship that had a real life end goal of developing a communications company with workforce capacity within tribal management, or management within for tribal members. Again, this isn't something, just the ed department, educational workforce. It took a lot of establishing partners, local colleges. That was one of our first, a couple of years ago. It was collaborating with NCAI, talking to the telecommunications subcommittee. It's working with Nicolay colleges and customizing coursework. And we do some unique work with our local colleges here that it's offered either in the education building or surrounding in Lac du Flambeau, and also it's customized to meet the needs of our employment. So we also work with the workforce, the Wisconsin Workforce Department. Reggie Newsom, the gang, his department. And what we've done is establish the job center within the education department as well. So we do the career readiness, we do the work skills, kind of the resumes and things like that. Also, being a member of the Vilas County Economic Board, it kind of brought in the more local and regional partners. And what does the county need? We're one of the larger employers, if not the largest, outside Marshfield Clinic for our area. So it was also created awareness for those surrounding townships of what the tribe could bring. How do we leverage this partnership together and build infrastructure in the Northwoods? So again, the BDC and of course the tribal departments. One critical department for us was of course HR, the screening of applicants and creating and coordinating between whether they needed resume building or maybe they needed interview skills and things like that if tribal members were not getting jobs, but also enrollment because they could provide the data and the membership. So we knew specifically for our projects, if we're targeting 18 to 24, we knew those names, where they were, who's on res, off res, and what they were doing. And so we try to really watch carefully our data and our membership so we can find them and get them to work. I'm just kidding. We can locate those who might want an opportunity. So. Do you guys have anything to add yet? I'm scaring them. I told them to stand up here for 20 minutes. Tribal telecom and broadband apprenticeship. Again, this was the concept. We, as part of the Vilas County Economic Board, part of the Northwoods, team looking for broadband development, we find it hard. One of the things I first felt that we really need to do this is we have classes that are established in my building, but if you get too many students working at the same time, the internet shuts off. Or if somebody's on their phone too long, there just isn't the bandwidth and the capacity. Of course, we have a wireless system, and again, we're under one provider here, so it kind of, they said that it's the price point as well. So it was getting where it's getting expensive. Could we do this ourselves? But also, how do we get broadband here that can support capacity of classrooms and again for economic development? So opportunity, we had working with Vilas, they were looking to complete a feasibility study on broadband deployment in the Northwoods, and we were able to creatively leverage our job placement training funds to fund the feasibility. And with that, with the BIA approval, how we were able to do that is we needed a training plan. So the Ogema kind of apprenticeship was born out of the JPT and with tribal support, tribal council support of matching funds. And we were able to not only gain a feasibility plan in broadband development telecommunications, we were also able to train tribal members. So, and again, this was, there's a lot of more internal infrastructure and design that went behind a lot of this, and one of it was the Tribal Council's initiative. They funded the education, our department, at a very high level, one of the most funded departments in the tribal, in the tribe. And with that, they also established college in the workday. So that resolution allowed tribal employees to come take college coursework, and very specific sequences we set up for business, natural resources, teacher education, so they could take 6 paid hours per week to come to the building and work on the sequence we developed with the colleges. One thing, going back into the design of it and the whole hiring recruitment of the apprenticeship is, again, reaching back to those goals and expectations. There were things as, what we wanted, someone who worked in the tribe, what were the expectations, what were the standards that we were going to set, and it's pretty high. We had about 14 tribal members apply, and with that, it was a 2-week, it was a hiring process. It was actually like a screen-out process, and we do that with our youth build as well. And it was based on attendance, a very zero tolerance, even lateness within break time. So everything counted, engagement, motivation. I put participation because as a past teacher, that can be very subjective and biased, and they can't question it. So I can just make it up. Let's use it. But what is participation? How do you measure that? So, but again, motivation, engagement is, for me, reflecting back on the Ogema team. It was finding that motivation, what you're passionate about, and taking that. And you'll find these guys, they'll talk, and they have a workshop coming up. There were different pathways they explored and developed themselves. And like you said, Rael's in the call center, and she really wanted to be a manager of the call center, and she's on that pathway. And we have some of the others that can talk about what they felt and or what they were really finding that was engaging them. So just a little bit about the training program. It was a first phase program. It was to complete feasibility, and the hours could vary. It was a full-time, and it was stipend-based, and they said for anyone who wants our apprenticeship, it was very important that for us in our budget, to stay away from wages because, as Brent explained, indirect costs can kill you, but I mean, it was training-based, but it also alleviated some of those concerns that we have for tribal is the housing. If you have a wage, sometimes that impacts your housing cost and rent. So with training, especially if it's a limited amount of time, that it doesn't impact rent and things like that. So that was one way why we chose to do the stipend-based training. So again, we have 7. We started out with 14 students, and through the process of elimination, we had 7. And again, now we have 5, but those going on to other employment opportunities. Networking partner, one of the first things that we needed to establish, and I talked a little bit about the partnership with the local colleges. I met with our local college presidents, and we need it here. We need it as free as possible. Let's write grants, and I want it credited, and I want it towards jobs that tribe deems that we need. And so that's where we started. We also worked a lot with the FCC, and again, the ONAP office is something, sitting on the NCAI telecommunications, and that was just kind of a passion and just an area that I found very interesting. It was interesting, and I wanted to make sure we had opportunity here in Glenville. So, but also we had regional partners like Grow North, who is the economic development regional, pushing for the opportunity from north of 29, as I call it. So, and again, we had a lot of the local townships. Access Engineering out of the contractor who we eventually brought on with the project. It was sitting down, going through the RFP process, and ensuring that the contractor understood who was selected there was going to be a training component, not the day in, day out, working with tribal membership through the entire the project entirety. So, and with this project, we learned a lot of things. I learned just as much as the students, and it was your historic preservation office is very important. Any kind of deployment, whether it's aerial, whether it's underground, you're going to be working with your historic preservation, making sure in hindsight you're not looking back or trying to find an alternative route for your broadband. So, water and sewer, of course, because they control the towers, as we learned. Water towers, I'm sorry. So that's just a little bit about, I have some other slides that I brought in, really speaking to what the in-depth parts of what Ogema learned from Access Engineering, who was our contractor in this project. And so these guys don't know I threw these slides up. And I added them from what I've learned as a teacher is, if you're going to teach something or you're going to present, you better know it. So of course these guys had to do it quite often. So as they're smiling here because they recognize, oh, can you guys see it? Okay. What the slides are from the tribal council meeting where they each took an area of what they learned with the feasibility study, whether it was products and hardware, whether it's the business plan, whether it's the ETC designation process that we went through. They uploaded comments to the FCC. They did a lot of the internal work that, as we looked, as we followed, for any of you familiar with the ETC process, that designation is for becoming an eligible telecommunications carrier. We were students, or they were students, and we were uploading comments when some of the other tribes had the attorneys uploading comments. So we thought it was a great accomplishment. So who had products and hardware? Who had to talk about that? Oh, of course it was the guy who's not here. But I'm not gonna, but again, I'm not gonna read, but they met with the vendors, the hardware vendors. They met with the phone companies. We continuously meet with the phone companies. If any of you are familiar with the rules of engagement that the FCC, the law on carriers must, who hold licenses on spectrum over tribal lands, must meet with tribal leaders or their representatives. Our council passed a resolution that our team would be the designated team members for that meeting because what they knew in their knowledge base now was, had far exceeded anybody else in these areas since the project had begun. So we continuously meet with like CenturyLink, AT&T, Verizon. We have discussions about services they're providing to the community, projected services and potential partnerships. So, and it's not just our team, it's key departments as well, such as the IT department, BDC members are there. We do have council representatives there, water and sewer and historic preservation. We also, the council passed a resolution that no changes to telecommunications and broadband services can happen on tribal lands with the tribe without meeting with the designated team. What we're finding after we got more involved in the feasibility is that there were contracts and leases and agreements being made, whether it was water and sewer being passed to this department or procurement, and our chairman would get them and think they were reviewed. And it was a kind of a careless situation of not understanding and fully acknowledging what was being signed when those leases came about. So we wanted to kind of slow it back and create a process where we understood what is the jurisdictional issues, what were the right-of-ways to spectrum, what do we understand, what do we need to understand, and getting writing from these companies, especially when it comes to the rules of engagement, the new FCC order for providing to tribal lands. That's basically the Universal Service Fund, and they're receiving a lot of money to serve tribal lands, but what we're finding is many times they may come up to the edge of the reservation and not properly serve. So we wanted to make sure now that we understood hardware, we understood the spectrum, understood their deployment, we could have that conversation with them. So. We're on the business plan, and I think I know who that one was. Mike. But fortunately for Mike, his leg is a little injured today. I mean, not fortunately. I'm sorry, that's wrongly stated. He doesn't have to walk up. But again, they took these slides and they explained the marketing, but they had to develop a business plan, which we do have a full-scale feasibility study with Access Engineering that we are discussing and looking at deployment in the North Vilas County, parts of Oneida County. If we had better internet, these slides would be faster. Again, ETC and telecommunications, I just described some of that process and understanding regulations. We've been entrusted by the council. We've been to several different conferences, meeting with the different providers, just getting the knowledge and representing and having different, whether we're talking about spectrum as a natural resource and what its implications are for the Lake Superior tribes, presenting at the Chippewa Confederacy meetings, or whether we're meeting with the FCC talking about our ETC status and applying as an eligible telecommunication these guys have, and all the way to organizing this conference. I mean, they've really developed a lot of skill in understanding that within this 9-month period, I mean, couldn't have been accomplished right in the classroom. It was a real hands-on blend of college coursework and apprenticeship learning. One last thing is these guys also will have their certification. They also take courses, so that's a requirement of the apprenticeship program. They'll have their advanced tribal management and supervision certification, which leads into, can articulate into a university business degree. We have that articulation here, where UW Green Bay is that partner along with us, so they'll be working on their degree here while working on Ogema communications. So, do you guys want to add anything? I was going to say Damon always has to.
I should have made a little bit. I just wanted to say that part of Access Engineering Groups, patching up some of